Day in the hallway, you're singing "Oh Happy Day."
One word prayer. Justice, where are you?
I'm just not used to the new routine. Sorry, Just to Serve TV is mostly live and on the air.
Definitely live. I am laughing so hard. There you are. I think we should file a copyright strike claim against Saturday Night Live because you rode that suitcase months ago, and then several weeks ago, Lady Gaga in Saturday Night Live was riding a suitcase into down the road.
I wish I could afford one of those. Those are real things.
It's a Honda. It's a Honda, right?
Yeah. It's unbelievable. I don't know if there's room for any clothing. I just used a regular one.
Yeah. Hello, everybody that's joining us. Excuse me. I'm actually still trying to get dressed here. Okay, I apologize.
Yeah, don't mind us. Go ahead.
Hi, Stacy. Hi, Debbie. Hi, Oasis Cat. Thank you for modding. Hi, Cat Calypso and Carlene, and to making it count, Jackie Seidel. From everyone. You're all going so fast. I can't say hi quick enough. Hi, everybody.
I'll just wait for you whenever you're done there. Hey, everybody! Thanks for joining.
I may not be done. I'm still trying to get dressed.
I know. Last Friday, I bailed on you early, and you hung on like a champ and talked to a lot of folks and answered questions. So I appreciate that. That was good.
Well, what it was is they were also interested. I always say this, so we have to thank our families for this too, because I don't think my husband's had a meal in I don't know when. Good thing he's out on the road a lot and stuff, and he can get a meal. But Friday night sometimes you want to go to dinner with your spouse, maybe. I always I say that it's not just it's everyone behind the scenes. It's the producers, it's the moderators, it's our family, it's everyone who makes this go. And if they're willing to help us make it go for everyone watching it, that the least we could do was stay and answer some questions.
Yeah, now I feel bad, but not really. But
no. You travel to Canton. You travel all over the place. You're the traveling man. I don't think I can sing that one. That one I can't sing. Okay.
Yeah.
I'm still trying to get dressed, Michael Bryant.
Yeah, go ahead. You seem to have some large thing attacking you on your right upper.
That's a Chanel flower.
Oh, it is.
That's a Chanel camellia.
Yeah.
Okay.
My bad.
Sorry about that.
I suppose.
Would you like me to take the flower that's attacking me off? In case you didn't know, it's spring. Flowers are blooming.
Yeah. The weather this time of year in this part of the country, it's hit and miss. We go from 61 and sunny to today's just a gray. This today, which is probably 50-ish and rainy off and on.
Right,
this is a horrible middle of winter day in California. This is as bad as it gets in California.
But you're not in California.
No, and I moved because there's more to life than the weather. That's all I can tell you right now.
Okay. All right. So, hello, everyone. Hello, Marie. I'm just seeing as you're going past Larissa, Lana Del Turno. Hello. If I don't shout you out, it's not because of anything. It's just, I have to tell you, the real reason I'm doing this is I'm still trying to get dressed. Okay. It may not happen on this show.
So the question is, we got a couple of things we're going to do here, obviously. And don't forget, we have Olivia coming up at 6 o'clock. We're going to try and squeeze in some many of the questions we didn't get to last week, because Karen Reed topic still top of mind for a lot of folks, as we are now 1 week. I'll be up there again next Monday, prepping for the Tuesday arrivals, because that'll be the first day of jury selection, which, of course, is the first day technically of trial. We expect it just to be a madhouse because there are going to be so many bodies. They've got a large pool coming in, and we do have the new questionnaire, which we should talk about for just a minute, because this came up on Friday, just as we got on the air, and somebody had asked a question about how come there's the word killing in the jury.
My bad. It was my bad.
I think it happened while we were on
there, but I asked her. It was Angela, and Angela, are you here today at all tonight? Because I asked her to send us what she's talking about, because, as you said, we were just on the air.
Yeah, and so we looked at the old one because at that point, as far as we knew, the new one had not been released. Well, it kind of crossed in the mail, as it were, and so we have the new one now. And I think just to clean up this little bit of something here, thank you, Jerome Street. Appreciate it, man.
Boy, I love you for joining us too, Jerome. Thank you so much for the donation. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
So let's look at the questionnaire. This is the new and improved one. I only went through. I only had a minute to highlight a couple of things, but it's obviously it's not a magnum opus. Just here's what is interesting though, and for fans of Elizabeth Little, this will be interesting. Remember, there was a day, I think it was last week, when the Judge Bev was pressing for each side's prospective or potential proposed jury questionnaire. Each side was to give a side each, and then they were going to blend them. And then Ms. Little suggested, because of all the publicity in this case, have you noticed there's been some publicity? I don't know. I guess there's been some.
Yeah.
She said maybe we should have a full page just for the publicity issue. And the judge thought that was a great idea. I think she kind of likes Elizabeth. And despite she's on the defense team. And so that's what they did. So there's 2 pages of questionnaire that's more traditional, and then a full separate page on the publicity angle. So here is the answer I'm finally getting to for that question. Number one, it is alleged that on January 29, 2022, while intoxicated and operating a motor vehicle in Canton, Massachusetts, the defendant, Karen Reed, killed her boyfriend. It's the allegation. It's not stated as a matter of fact. So even though there was some concern that Karen Reed killed her boyfriend was part of the jury questionnaire, I don't think anybody is surprised that that's what the prosecution is arguing. I mean, that's the case. So that's why it's in there. That's why that word has been used. Okay.
Was it in the first one? Do we know?
It was not. That's the one we looked at, and it's not in there.
It's not in there. So how did the prosecution then able to get something that's a lot more?
Hey, Brenna.
That's a lot more. Yeah, you know what I was going to say. A lot more helpful right off the bat to the prosecution.
Yeah,
what do you know about that?
By
the way, Larisha, thank you. So it's pronounced Larisha. Okay. People pronounce my name wrong too. They always pronounce it Baden or Bowden or Kennedy. And I figure as long as they know they're talking to me, it's okay.
I think Baden would be better because you're like you're a bad one.
Bad. Was it bad something Brown?
Leroy Brown. Yeah,
Leroy Brown. Yeah.
Let's not go down that road.
Okay.
Okay, so that's the new questionnaire, and it does look a whole bunch like the last year's questionnaire, except for that one critical difference in the top. Number 5, I highlighted just because it references the media attention, and because of that, we have a whole 3rd page. Otherwise, if you just kind of look through these as we're scrolling, nothing crazy. As before, questions about people having been driving under the influence, people in domestic violence situations, all of this, same as last time. Anybody from law enforcement that you feel, this is an interesting question. Do you believe law enforcement officers are generally fair and accurate in their investigations? Boy, that's going to be a tough question in that area.
Boy, in this area, yeah.
I don't know how far back you have to go, but the Karen Reed case is not, a one-off. Let's put it that way. In terms
could we go back to question 1 and 2, because 2 is an interesting question, and I glossed over it, and now that you read it, read 1. And basically said they probably got this because of the Hank Brennan effect. It's alleged that Karen Reed on January 29, 2022, while intoxicated and operating a motor vehicle in Canton. Apparently, everyone seems to be intoxicated and operating the motor vehicle.
Like I said, I thought that was a requirement.
Yeah. The defendant, Karen Reed, killed her boyfriend, John O'Keefe, blah, 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 blah. Is there anything that causes you to believe that you cannot be fair and impartial in this case? But then 2 then says, and that usually covers, can you be fair and impartial? Right. 2 then says, have you already started to make up your mind about this case? That's a really funny worded question, okay?
Yeah, to say started.
To start it, especially when it follows the, can you be fair and impartial? Yes, I can. And then, so that it's like, it's a double back. Okay, well, you said you can be fair and impartial. Let's double back. Have you really, have you started to make up your mind, though? I've never quite seen
it's basically like saying, really? Are you sure? Can you think that? It's
Yeah,
kind
did you
of asking the
just
same
lie to us on the first question?
Yeah,
You know?
exactly,
Yeah,
exactly.
so, I've never seen jury questionnaires quite done like that. I've never seen that question before following the impartial question.
Yeah. But
Hmm,
to be honest,
hmm.
I don't have a problem with it. You know, you're still hoping the prospective juror is honest, right? And
Right,
since this
right.
is written, and it's anonymous, they'll have a number but not a name. Everybody in the courtroom will know, you know, they'll have lists that they're working from and they're sorting bodies out.
But
Uh,
here's what's gonna happen. Here's what's gonna happen. As soon as someone says they started making up their mind about this case, and if they say it's for Karen Reed, Hank Brennan's gonna exercise a strike for cause. Okay, all right. When if the defense, if it's and he's gonna say strike for cause. If it's the other way around, it'll be, well, aren't you sure you can be fair? You can put away or put aside anything that you've started to believe already, can't you? You can do that. That's what I see happening here. And so I see strike for cause immediately if it's beneficial to the prosecution, and if it's not, the judge will continue to query the witness, and the witness at that point is going to be the prospective juror, right? About whether or not they could be fair.
Yeah. And remember, this questionnaire is really in place of the attorneys doing a voir dire of the whole panel. And we see that note there from Scott McGinnis. Hey, Scott, buddy, good to have you along. 2,000 people have been summoned for the jury pool.
You
Well, that's
found
a
that
lot.
out, huh?
That's a lot of
Whoa.
bodies. That's. I mean, I don't know where they're going to put them all or how that's going to work. Normally, as I see it, and Scott, you know, you're there every day. For the days I've been there, they seem to round them up across the street at the Registry of Deeds, and then they march them across the street. Is that what I've seen, or is that some weird field trip? It just seemed they were using that space because we know that courthouse is not exactly giant. So I don't know with 2,000 people. That obviously they're not bringing them in all at once. They'll bring them in waves. But I think 3 weeks, Scott, is a pretty good guess. That would be about where I'd put it. The judge has put it at or about 3 weeks as well. So,
Well,
you know,
especially since in those weeks you're going to have Good Friday, right? There's some people not going to want to go to
yeah,
court. I don't even know if there are. Does Massachusetts, anyone know if Massachusetts considers Good Friday a day off from
it's,
court, like some of the other courts
it
in the
could
East
be, or
Coast,
even
or
a
not?
short day, maybe. Could be
Or
a
a
short
short
day.
day,
Yeah.
and it's going to be really interesting too, because you're going to have a lot of people that have planned trips around the holidays, right? So, so it's
Yeah.
going to be, yeah, I think 3 weeks at least. Although, hey, look, have you ever started making? Yeah, I think Karen Reed is guilty, but no, but you could be fair about this case, right? Oh, sure, I can be fair. Okay, you're on. All
Yeah.
right,
Well,
boom.
yeah. I mean,
All
if it's
right.
that flagrant, I don't even think the judge would allow that. But
I don't
you know,
know. I
I don't know.
don't know. Okay,
I don't know.
I don't know.
I
I
noticed
don't know.
Scott had a follow up. He said it's going to be 100 a day. That sounds more reasonable, but it's still a circus. It's a
That's still
zoo.
a lot,
And
right?
then we'll see. Remember, and this will happen tomorrow for those who haven't caught up in the latest hearings. Tomorrow at 11, they're back at it. One of them is the whole buffer zone
Right, I was
question.
gonna ask about that. So when you go up there Sunday night,
I'm not going till
on
Monday night, but it'll be in
Monday
place
night,
by
okay,
then. Yeah.
okay, it'll be in place by then, and you'll have so you may be yeah, you may be
Down the
you may
street.
be using
I
our
think
Starlink from, Stoughton.
I think the courthouse is down there somewhere. I'm not sure.
Is that
Yeah.
a dome I see? Is there a dome? You know? Yeah.
Well, if it turns out I'm closer staying home than going, then that's probably a big buffer zone. So we'll see. We'll figure it out. Um,
So what
yeah.
else
So
do we
anyway,
have
these
here?
questions are being asked of these chunks of people, so the attorneys don't get to do any of that. And then once they've culled them from the questionnaire, then the attorneys get to do some individual voir dire.
Well, this is an interesting one. Have you ever it's question 14.
Oh, okay.
Let me scroll
Skipping
that
ahead
up.
to page 2. Here we go. Okay.
Yeah, let's go ahead to page 2. Only I know it's not highlighted but it's interesting. Have
I didn't
you
get to
been
it.
involved in a
Yeah.
group, organization, participated in a march, demonstration, campaign, or donated money on behalf of an organization or cause that was against drunk driving under the influence of alcohol, such as sad students against drunk driving or mad mothers against drunk driving? Now that could work either way, right?
Mhm.
Because everybody was driving drunk, it seemed, that night.
Yeah, and that was in the first trial questionnaire, that same question. So it's obviously an issue here. I mean, I think even local jurors are going to be shocked when they hear how nonchalant cops are about drinking and driving. It was a shocker to me. It just sounds so like small town, insular, inbred, kind of like we got our own rules here. It was weird.
And then we go, since we're on that page, we go to this interesting question.
Pick a number. Which one?
This is the questionnaire roulette, okay?
Yeah.
25, because it relates back to question 1 and question 2.
If you had to vote today on whether Ms. Reed is guilty or not guilty of the crime charge, what would your vote be? I mean, that it looks like they're giving people at least 3 opportunities to say, I'm way too biased, let me out of here. Right?
Yeah, are they trying to root out jurors that want to serve for some reason or another, and then going back and forth to these questions like that? I mean, obviously the vote has to supposedly be not guilty, but what if they say they're not sure, right? They're not sure because they haven't heard the evidence, right?
Well, that's the right answer, of course. Yeah,
right.
That's
actually,
the right answer.
It's not guilty is the right answer.
Well, in theory, yep. In theory, they're innocent. Yeah, until proven guilty. But
and then there's this one right after, and I'm going to throw this one to you. 26. Do you know or recognize anyone you have seen today in the courthouse or in the jury pool? What is that about?
Yeah, I've never seen it extended to the jury pool, but I get it. That sounds like they're concerned about some sort of collusion within the jury panel if they have people that are friends with one another. I've never really seen that developed before, but again, this is a relatively small town, so it's more likely it's going to happen that you're going to have cross-pollination. Remember, in the case in South Carolina, Alec Murdaugh, there were relatives all over the place.
That's right. I wasn't one of the cops related to one of the members of the jury, and they were like, no problem, come on.
That was a really tiny location, and so there was, like I said, some crossbreeding, cross-pollination, some buddies. So I think that's what they're looking for. They don't want a pack of jurors that are going to vote together because they happen to know and be friends with one another.
Interesting question. This is some interesting questions in this jury questionnaire. It doesn't really do what most jury questionnaires do, which is, expand out, in terms of different things. Have you talked to friends or neighbors about this case? Right. Usually you see that.
Well, we're going to get that in page 3, I think. We'll get there.
Yeah. Well, let's see. Okay.
Hey, look at number 28. Is there any reason why you do or do not want to serve on the jury? Now, if you answer yes, you're going to have a private conversation. It's highly unlikely they're going to get into that in open court. Maybe they will. But they want to know why. Well, what's the reason? Because otherwise they give you no place to tell the reason here. So they're going to want to know what it is.
Right. Right.
And if it's a good one, then maybe you get kicked off. Okay. So here's the new page 3. This is the Elizabeth Little page. Do you have any knowledge of this case gained from any source? Anybody going to say no to that? Is that possible? I guess it's possible.
It's possible. It's possible.
And then they ask the source, obviously the usual. Hey, I don't see Justice Served TV on here. Wait a minute.
Social media.
Go down at the bottom. Somebody could write us in there. Let's see. Twitter, internet, social media, blah, blah, blah.
What is it? So television,
hey,
radio.
Look, it doesn't say YouTube.
And that's the most ridiculous thing, because here in New York City, when they're doing these questionnaires now, everyone puts down, most people get their knowledge from YouTube and X. That's where you get your knowledge from. And they just have Facebook, which is like, they have X, Facebook. Okay. I don't think really many people get their news from Facebook. Okay. Instagram, if you want to see pictures of Tubi, my poodle, he's all over Instagram. TikTok is kind of more fun. YouTube really should be, what they're doing? They don't want to recognize YouTube as a legitimate source of news, and therefore they're not putting it down. And they really should.
That's just naive. It's just really stick your head in the sand, people.
Right. Absolutely.
And I did send a new note for reconsideration. I made a motion for reconsideration of our media pass denial, and I quoted their rule. Rule 119.
Yeah.
And their language where it says from any medium. That's what it says, from any medium.
Any medium, right.
As long as you regularly report on items of public interest, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
So I said, please send me a detailed reason as to why we don't fit under those guidelines.
Well, quite frankly, I think if we challenge that, we decide to challenge that, we win.
I think we do too. And I tried, without saying it, I wanted it to come across as, because we're going to be pressing this further, and I need
Right.
details as to why you
Right.
won't allow it.
Right.
So they can
Just
fill
because.
in
Right.
the blanks,
Right.
which is because we want to take this up. Thank you very much.
Yeah. Yeah. I think we do. And quite frankly, I mean, really, we should get in touch with YouTube, because YouTube, again, I will repeat for everybody, is the largest search engine in the world. And most people get their news from YouTube and X. As a matter of fact, it's kind of interesting here. Usually when they have television, they will have the name of the network. You get the news from television, CNN, Fox, NBC. They'll have the big three, right? Usually up there. They don't have it. So the question is, do the attorneys get to ask further, or has the judge decided that doesn't matter what station they watch? It doesn't matter.
Yeah, I guess to some degree, you could learn more about from where they get it versus what they've learned, I guess. Sui generis, always. How does background check make future jurors feel about serving for their communities? We want to serve after this. So yeah, we talked about this too, about how the criminal background checks, which was part of a motion in limine.
Right, the Corey checks, and people don't realize that. When we as defense attorneys, or when I was a prosecutor, they used to do background checks on all the jurors, but then they didn't even notify the defense at that point, because there was no court rule in New Jersey that said you had to, right? And then everybody in the prosecutor's office will pass around. They know who the jurors are, right? They'll pass around books. It's books, electronic books, or whatever. Do you know any of these people on the jury pool? Do you know anyone who knows them? So they'll have their own internal investigation, and I don't mean an investigation like a police investigation, although in this case, who knows? Also going into other things that people may know about jurors. But the Corey check is really is ridiculous, because it does give the prosecutor access to all information about people.
Yep, stuff you may wish they didn't know. But yeah, it's not like the jury system is challenging enough for folks who aren't able to donate their time. I forgot to check what they pay in Massachusetts. I'm sure somebody knows from this case or another one. Do you remember? Yours was a few years ago, but
I don't remember.
$25, $35. It's crazy.
All the jury systems are crazy. These people donate their time. They have to, they take off of work. Some jobs pay for jury service. Other jobs don't, and usually they'll let somebody go. But I have seen judges. Boy, somebody's self-employed. They say, too bad. You can do your work at home, right? At night when you go home, you can do your
and I understand the theory. It's duty of a civilized society, and but you got to be realistic too. You're going to get you're going to get folks who have nothing better to do, which is fine, or don't have a good excuse to get out of jury duty, and they're going to be there upset about it the whole time, just wanting to get it done. And that's not really the juror that you're looking for. In fact, that's part of, when they get to individual voir dire, they want to find out what's motivating this person to be here, good, bad, or otherwise, or do they want to be out the door as soon as possible? That's also not good. So somebody asked a question. It was a follow-up to question 1 of the questionnaire, because they may have missed our explanation. They used the word killed in there because the question relates to the prosecution's allegations, and that's their allegation. Karen Reed killed John O'Keefe. Officer John O'Keefe. Okay, let's see.
That's now that I think about that, why does there need to be? Well, I guess for the defense, you want him to be an off-duty police officer. A police officer killed a police officer. That's what you're alleging, right? But for the purposes of Karen Reed, that I think is objectionable. He stands in no different position whether he was a plumber, a machinist, or an off-duty police officer, because she didn't kill him in the line of duty. This is not a line of duty case. I think that's a real problem. I mean, I really dislike that question in that, because it puts him in a different position in relation to Karen Reed. Now, if he were killed because it was in the line of duty, absolutely. But that's not what we have here.
So which question is that you have a problem?
That starts
just
from
the very
number 1.
first question?
That starts from number 1.
That's still their allegation. I mean, that, like it or not, that's the allegation.
Yeah, but it doesn't matter that he's an off-duty police officer for the purpose of kill. He killed her boyfriend, John O'Keefe, period.
Oh, I see. Yeah, we think, because normally you're going to have a conference of some sort. Each side was asked to present their proposed questions, and then with the judge, they should have had a conference of some sort outside, just a bench, a chambers conference, where they argue about the language of each of these questions. We don't know to what degree that happened. It may not have happened at all. It may have been, oh, you guys want number one prosecution? Okay, here's number one. Next. We don't know. We don't know if there was any real discussion or fight about that.
Or fighting about it. Absolutely. Sui generis. Yes. Thank you. Can we put Sui up?
Whoops.
Whoops. She passed. Hold on. You didn't, she didn't pass. I mean, we just. So
okay. Oh, it was there and then it was gone. There we go.
There you go.
Spring, Florida, Maya trial. Pross tried to use.
Yeah. That's the young, who's Maya's a young girl who her mother killed herself. She was taken away from her, remember, over child abuse. And then Maya's family sued the father, the brother, and obtained a large judgment against the hospital system. Go ahead, I'm sorry.
Just remind Pross tried to use online folks to check jurors, brought in the foreman on the stand. Disgusting. Our system needs to chill. Yeah, well, that's the problem with too much information available, right?
Right.
That was a crazy trial. Wow.
Right. And they do that. They're going to do that here too. They're always trying to get somebody, or somebody's trying to get somebody. And obviously, the defense argued in the first trial that there was some type of jury intimidation, jury tampering, right? Because three of the jurors and I think Scott McGinnis talked about it when he was on our show. Scott, I think you're still in the chat the other day, that all of a sudden three of the jurors that the defense felt were pro Karen Reed got kicked off the jury just before the deliberations. That was my recollection of what Scott said.
Yeah, I think you're right. Okay, let's see where we are here. Let's just look at the last couple of, again, this is on page 3, which is what about the publicity issue? So you can see, what is your familiarity with the case prior to today? They give you a whole line and 2 lines to work that in. Have you had discussions about this case prior to today? I mean, hopefully this will open up some information that either side can use, but
I got a jury summons for April 1st.
You said you never had one.
No, on this question, have you spoken about? Hubby, child, daughter, work. I got a jury summons April 1st. What case do you think I'm going in on?
Oh, brother. So they want to know if you've been sitting around the kitchen table with the parents and the family and, talking about the case and talking about Turtle Boy and talking about, the judge. I'll be shocked if one person says, I didn't know a thing about it till I got this jury summons. I didn't know a thing. Never heard a word. I'd be shocked.
Well, we'll see. We've seen cases that's happened where we think everybody knows everything, and it turns out they're busy working their own lives.
That'd be great.
And know nothing.
That'd be great. Is there any reason?
Go into New York City here, right?
Hey,
a lot of people don't know this. This is not OJ Simpson for them.
This New York City ain't Canton.
Yeah, no, but what I'm saying to you is that if you go into, this is a closed community, but and in the crime community, but if you go outside, like I'll go up to the cabin in Sullivan County, no one's ever heard of the Karen Reed case.
Yeah, no, I'm sure. So unless they start trucking people in from New York City, I think it's going to be tough to find somebody who said, no, Karen, it's not coming to me. And the final question on this, again, this is just the publicity issue. Is there any reason that if you are inadvertently exposed to extrajudicial influence or media about this case, you'd be unable to follow an instruction that you must report an exposure to a court officer? Here's another likelihood, in my opinion. There will be at least one of those things happen during the course of this trial, maybe twice, maybe more, but it's going to happen. Somebody on the jury is going to be somehow inadvertently exposed to extrajudicial influence or media, right?
Right. No doubt about it. Absolutely no doubt about it.
And at some point, it's going to become an issue that's going to have to be dealt with the court. Auntie Bev's Kangaroo Court and Three Ring Circus. That is a mouthful there. Thank you so much. Do you think the prosecution will try and get the list of people who have donated to Karen or Aiden's legal defense? That's very interesting.
Oh, that's interesting. Don't you think they've tried already?
Well, certainly, it's got to be a question that comes up. I didn't see that specific question.
No, I saw they're donating to MAD.
Yeah, MAD and SAD.
SAD. Let me go back and look.
Yeah, I can't. I don't see anything that very specific, but
But I wonder.
I would ask it if I got to individuals. I would definitely ask that.
Let's see. During the trial. I don't see it. Interesting.
Yeah. I think maybe it's too on point for the panel, but once you get on the one-on-one, you're going to ask, do you ever donate? First, you might even start a little wider. Do you ever donate to organizations, support organizations of any kind? Oh, really? What kind? And then you may get to, how about the Karen Reed or Turtle Boy causes? We'd like to thank and excuse, Your Honor, juror number 23.
We'd like to thank and excuse jurors number 1 to 999.
Yeah.
Because we've seen a lot of fundraisers for both Karen Reed and for Aiden Carney, for Turtle Boy, Dr. Turtle Boy, and there are a lot of donations. I see Nan Ferrio's here on our chat right now.
Good.
Are you still here? You've been donating. You believe strongly. I think you've donated to both of them. I know I saw your name go past, but things are going so fast. It's hard to keep up here. As a lot of you are chatting, and thank you all for coming here to chat tonight. It's a continuation.
Have we answered any of those questions that were leftovers from last week?
No. We answered about 125 questions last week. We had 800 more to go. So we're trying. We picked a few to try to get to tonight. We'll go off the jury questionnaire, I guess, now.
Yeah, let's a quick point here from Sui Generous again. Judge wants April deadline.
Thank you, Sui, by the way. Thank you again.
One half of the witnesses don't come to the stand in a jail suit with handcuffs. Okay.
Thank you, Sui. Thank you, your support. You're great. Thanks for the love. Shout out. Oh, that's hysterical. I mean, that's a great, funny line, I have to say. I may have to use that line.
Right. Hurry up before more convictions come along. Come on.
Yeah, I had to steal that line. That is so funny.
Okay, so I'm going to put this away. I'm going to put that away. We've done all we can with that. Here's a programming question for you. Because we do have Olivia coming up at the top of the hour now.
Right.
We can squeeze in our person of the week, which kind of dovetails right into these questions, if you want to do that.
Yes, let's do. I don't even know who the person of the week is.
Well, I kind of tipped it off a little bit since I said it dovetails.
Well, let's see. Hold on a second, Joanna. Okay. Thank you, Joanna. Yeah, member for 1 month. I know we met you on coming to our show, and you're helping us following a case. So happy to be part of this amazing community. Thank you.
I agree.
We tracked you down. We've tracked Joanna down.
Are you ready?
Yes.
Okay.
Riding flames, they charge with light. Eyes like fire, hearts alight. Drums of war beat through the night. Victory, oh what a sight. Oh brave souls in the storm. Raise your swords, no more to mourn. Giant hearts in battles born. Legends forged and never torn.
That was a fun one.
That was a fun one. That was when Hank Brennan didn't tell the judge that perhaps maybe the defense team, whose case number it's on, should be at the hearing where they're.
I don't know why they're here. I don't know. I don't know. It's a standing issue. Yeah. So the Karen Reed defense team, who look like warriors coming in, barging in on that hearing that Mr. Brennan really didn't think they should be there for. So.
And the judge too.
I think I've watched that a couple of times now. I just think he looked horrible. Every time I watch it, he looks worse. Because I gave him the benefit of the doubt when he first challenged it, but when he reads out the docket number, and it's the Karen Reed docket number, how in the world do you get past that to think there's a standing issue? Hello?
So the
I don't
defense
care
team,
if it's evidence that might later be attacked.
yes,
You called my case.
you called my case, and it's the defense team. And Hank Brennan didn't say what. That's I told you. That's what pissed me off. He didn't say like most of the times, Your Honor, this is the Karen Reed docket number. Even though we're seeing Mr. Carney, we're seeking Mr. Carney's phones to get into these phones. They have standing to argue, and they said in the case management conference that they were going to do it orally. So I think we should wait for them, Your Honor. Instead, they don't have standing.
Yep.
Come
Instead, let's get this going so I can maybe I can squeeze this in.
Yeah, warriors. Yes, they are warriors.
Yes.
Absolutely. I thought those were OG moves coming in, OG moves. And Alan Jackson got right up to it. And then the judge said, "Who are you?"
Yeah, could you state your appearance for the record, please? Which is fine. I mean, it's okay. I'm sure he knew who it was, but he does want to get it on the record. I get that.
Yeah. So that is our person or persons of the week was the defense team for Karen Reed in that OG move.
Yes. Okay. So I was just looking through some of these things here to highlight them. There's Kimberly from Kansas, YouTube member. Thank you, Nurse Kimberly.
Thank you. And it's a great community. Please come back and chat because we're going to be on, just so you know, every night this week. We are on. We're going to have Olivia on starting at 6. Tomorrow night we have
Tomorrow night. Well, we're going to have all the fallout from
the fallout from the court date. There's a court date tomorrow, and
kind of leaving that open.
Yeah, and you're going to be on the air in the morning when the court goes on, and then I'm going to relieve you about lunchtime. So we're going to switch off, and then we'll be on the air together at night. And then one night this week, Aiden Carney's promised he's come on. We're hoping that it's going to be Wednesday, but we're waiting to hear from him. And Thursday night, just so you know, because he's expressed an opinion on this case, Doug Weinstein from YSL. All right. It's an interesting opinion because it really kind of expresses some dissatisfaction with both teams, but some real dissatisfaction with one side. And then Friday night,
one particular event triggered that outburst because he, like you said, he's kind of busy doing his own cases, right?
Yeah.
So maybe if they called him as in the jury pool, he would have very little information about the Karen Reed case. But because of that, he's like, I got things going on. But even this event that triggered him got him to make a public statement about how he felt.
But he made a pretty big public statement about, shall we say, the prosecutor in the case.
Can say that.
That's all I'm going to say to you. Okay. And then Friday night, we also have a show planned. We've promised and we're trying to work it out with Will DeGlare that he comes on our show and then we do his show. So we're hoping
he was on our show a couple of weeks ago.
Yes, a couple of weeks ago.
So we owe him a visit, which we're going to try and do this week.
Right.
Rhonda Hall, thank you so much. Congratulations. You both numbers are awesome. You guys are the best. We appreciate that.
Thank you very much.
What do you like to say? We're new. Is that what you say?
Yeah, we're new. We're approaching 9,000. Is it 9,000?
I think it's 8,000.
8,000, whatever. I've lost track. But anyhow, we're also planning to tape some shows this week and run them as premieres. We have not come to you yet with our views on the Brian Kohberger matter. You know, him in a shirt looking like he showered the day. Right, the morning after the murders. Okay, we have some pretty strong feelings about that.
I mean, then that 911 call is out, which is, I know we're a little behind the curve on this because we've been busy
with Karen Reed.
But as we work toward that trial, we definitely want to keep our feet in.
So we're going to try to do that, tape that, and run that as a premiere so we can chat with you all, in the chat. And there's a couple other things we're going to do too, but probably next week. We're trying to bring as much content as we can within the fact that Michael, Brian, and I are still practicing law, which that gives us the bent. That's how come we have a feeling about certain of these cases. We've been through a lot of this stuff. So stay with us, and we thank you for coming. But we're not gone yet tonight.
Oh, we're leaving? Oh, okay. So let's try to
Joanna
look at
again.
Questions.
Yes.
I know. I think you did that while I was queuing something up. So Joanna, you've been with us for a month. We deserve two shout outs. Okay. So
and she went to court for a case. She's the one who brought us that case to listen.
Yes, that's right. That's right. Okay, so now we're going to look at questions that we didn't get to, at least some of them. We're trying to get a few of them in, right?
Yeah, and during the week we may get some more as we try to, maybe we'll try to do another show that we just answer questions and then run it as a premiere again.
Okay, so this is from PG8 191. Let me see if I can make it a touch bigger here. So it's coming. Okay, maybe I can't. All right then. Oh, there we go. Can a judge look into the case in front of them, or are they only allowed to look at what the lawyers bring in? Okay, so I'm going to have to help me try and. There's something missing in this question. I apologize. I think it's. Can the judge look at the case in front of them, meaning the case that's happening? I assume, or are they?
I think the evidence
the lawyers bring in.
Yeah.
So there is. I'm going to try and interpret this as a question about the law of the case. You know that phrase, right?
Right.
The law of the case. Sometimes the court will make a decision based on what's happening in a case in front of them, current case, and that effectively creates a rule that they then apply through the balance of that case. It may be a very specific rule that case law hasn't covered or hasn't been challenged on the appeal, but it works for that particular case, and the parties really ultimately get to rely on it.
Yeah.
But I don't know if that's the actual question being asked here.
Well, but I also think she's talking about, look, does the judge get to look into any corruption that may be out there that she's heard about, other cases that may be related? Does she get to do other things? Does she get to call, let me call the FBI? Does she get to do all sorts of things that the lawyers may not bring to her, but that she knows that are around? Can she investigate it, I think, is the question.
Okay. Well, two answers then. Hey, 2 for 1. Okay, this is JI5-25. Hang on. So taking Michael Proctor's private phone data is fair, but taking Turtle Boy's phone data is not fair to verify consciousness of guilt of a defendant. You guys appear to not know a lot of background of this case and the evidence that's already out there and the serious nature of it. This is about justice for Officer John O'Keefe, not the free Karen Reed show that you appear to be buying into. Aha.
Ooh, yeah. No, we actually don't donate to that. We call this as we see it. Okay.
So
Michael Proctor's,
talk about his phone.
Yeah, Michael Proctor's private phone is being used for police business, and that's what cops have been doing.
That's the problem.
That's what they've been doing, right? To get around, and it's happened for years. To get around, it used to be you can't have the private phone to text because they have their cop cell phone and they have the radio. But the conversations that you really want to hear that were important were not happening on that. They were happening on private phones. Now everyone's gotten word and understanding that the private phone gets used all the time, and that's why he's using it for his police business. So taking his phone is absolutely fair. And in terms of Turtle Boy's phone, that's a whole separate issue because they want to use Turtle Boy's phone to get to Karen Reed to say anything that Karen Reed told Turtle Boy. There it goes to an intimidation of witnesses, and that's a jump, and that is a leap. Okay. Yep. So we're not the free Karen Reed. We're the make sure justice is served and the law is followed show.
Yeah, and it's really a pretty simple distinction between the two. So hope that answered that question. Lisa Lou, love Lisa Lou. She's always bopping around in here. With regard to the federal investigation, why would they choose Hank Brennan, to call and let him know? His disdain for the feds is well known. So if anything, they may have parsed words with him as to what exactly may have been closed to him and Canton PD to relax. And the feds allowed to lie are the feds allowed to lie in pursuit of admissions? Are they not? The feds are allowed, to lie in pursuit of admissions. Are they not? Well, normally in the investigation with a suspect, not necessarily with a prosecutor or special prosecutor in a case, that would be weird. So what do you think? Why do you think the feds would reach out to Hank Brennan to give him any information?
Because he is the person who will then go forward with the prosecution's case there. And if there was a federal investigation and they came to some kind of grand jury indictment there was an indictment of somebody, he would have to know that. And I think that I think it is appropriate that they reached out to him.
Yeah.
And said it. I mean, I think I have no problem with that. As a matter of fact, the defense may have a problem with that because according to Hank Brennan, it was Karen Reed's, whether she or her defense was the impetus for this investigation to begin. I'm not sure that's the case. I think this investigation began because of the Sandra Birchmore case. That's my view. Anyhow,
I think you're right. if you look at the timing, I think you're right. And, they are supposedly cooperating agencies. They should be to some degree, right? They're both
Right.
supposedly in the law enforcement business.
Right, exactly. And yes, Hank Brennan does have there's several interviews when he represented Whitey Bulger about his disdain for the federal government. But also remember that Hank Brennan also was a prosecutor in Suffolk and Essex counties before he went into doing defense work. So you always have to kind of remember that.
Yeah, there was that article you mentioned. In fact, you sent it to me, and I wanted to pull some of the quotes from it, and I never got around to it. But yeah, this was written when he was doing defense work, right?
Right.
I think it was just before Whitey Bulger or just after. But he was going off on police corruption,
Right.
and how outrageous it is, and how it is ruining the system, and how can we trust anybody in law enforcement because of these various issues that have taken place. And now, he's knee deep in a situation in which that is front and center, police corruption. Okay, so let's see. That looks like the same question.
Hear those sirens? They're coming to get you, Michael Bryan.
Coming to get me. Kate Dance J. I think Bev chose not to explain objection, so it becomes a problem on appeal. We shall see how she rules this time. 2.0, free Karen Reed, not guilty. Just tell the jury the truth about ACA. The feds employed ACA. Previous jurors thought they were from Karen's insurance company. Remember that little explanation?
Wow.
That was insightful.
Wow, that was really
or even Aidan Carney. So they dismissed them, which is detrimental to the defense. That's true. I've always been a fan of just letting it all hang out there. Yeah, if the defense had some connection with them and it's still very murky, let it out. I don't care. The experts have their opinions. And unless you can prove to this jury that they were biased, bought off, persuaded, convinced by something the defense did, then they're good for the defense.
Right.
I would rather not hide the ball from the jury on something like that. And that insurance, speculation was, I never thought of that myself.
Right. I never thought of it either. Unbelievable. And they're speculating as to who hired these people, right? I mean, it's just unbelievable. Unbelievable. I was shocked that they were speculating that. But and she's against telling them that they were hired by the federal government. She doesn't say why. They were hired by the federal government for an independent inquiry, right?
Yep.
In something that you don't have to be concerned about, ladies and gentlemen, but it's an independent inquiry. And just want to let you know that the federal government hired them, they paid for them, and then afterwards they were then rehired after they finished their conclusions by the defense. That's all you have to say.
And of course, the prosecution will then say, well, Your Honor, then we need to explain what that's all about. We have to tell them what happened after the fact, who wrote the $24,000 check. We have to get into this little trial within a trial. And to be honest, if the choice is telling them nothing or telling them everything, I'm into telling them everything.
And I absolutely agree with you. If you're going to have the jurors, and by the way, Sherry D became a YouTube member. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Sherry D.
Thank you. If you're going to have jurors wanting to go after the truth, to determine the truth, to find the truth, isn't this a finding the truth seeking operation, justice? Isn't that what we're supposed to do? Justice is supposed to be served with truth and justice. Then you tell them everything. You don't hold back.
Yeah. Yep. And I understand why each position wants to be argued. So I'd say let it all out. It's better to know the whole story.
Right.
Let's see. What do we got here? Technogeneric. If Hank Brennan tries to paint ACA as being hired, paid by the defense, kind of a follow-up here for their original opinion, does that not open the door to the FBI DOJ investigation? Well, I think you've just addressed that. Yeah. The court can decide how much, if any, of the information the jury needs to know. And I don't think you have to go into the FBI DOJ investigation just to say it was a federal investigation. The defense ultimately paid for their expert work after the fact, but they did not hire these experts.
Right. And the experts came to their opinion while they were employed by the federal government. And the defense is now entitled to use that opinion in this presented to you, ladies and gentlemen of the jury. By the way, sui generis, thank you for making me feel like you're not crazy. You're very welcome. They're very welcome. You're not crazy at all. Wow. So you're absolutely right. Okay.
Yeah. Okay, Joanne Jedi Platypus. Okay.
I love his name. I said that to her the other night. I said, I love your handle, Joanne. I love it.
Yeah, it took me, I had to go slowly. So I wasn't sure where that was going. If a witness's testimony changes from the first trial, yes. Can they be impeached? Yeah, of course. And I would love to see that happen a few times. I would be shocked if it doesn't. You know what they say, the truth never changes. But if you're fudging on a few things, sometimes it's hard to keep everything straight. Jen McCabe. I'm sorry, some of these witnesses.
And sometimes, details do change because, as I explained, the neuroscientists say when you talk about an incident, right, and it goes out of your mind, and then you come back in and you pull it back again out of the mind and talk about it, sometimes there'll be minor details that change, minor words that change because your memory, it doesn't stay the same, believe it or not, in your brain. Your memory changes every time you tell a story. The question is, how much? Is it a big change or is it one of these little changes?
Is it material or is it just an incidental issue?
Right. Right.
Did I do a search how long to die in the cold at 2:27, or did I not? Did I not do it till 6 something, but I had a tab open at 2:27, so it reflects that time? I mean, that would be kind of important.
Right. Absolutely. Absolutely. So then
let's see. Nina 79. I don't understand. I'm pretty sure higher ups see what is going on. They have.
Did you get to technogenic? Technogeneric?
I thought. Oh, I think I did that one, didn't I?
Okay. Well, does that open the door to the FBI? This is a little bit different. It's just a little, It's a Hank price of pain. Okay, I thought it was just a tad different. Yes, it does open the door.
Nina. I don't understand. I'm pretty sure higher ups see what's going on. They have to, or see the trials, but doesn't anyone walk in on her and Hank at least sit in the area with the public and watch them? So the ultimate question there is, aren't the people supervising the court, the district attorney, the state, aren't they looking? There have been theories that this goes up to the governor, right? That the governor knows this case, has been watching this case, has been sanctioning, and Judge Bev is appointed. So she's appointed. We have, of course, the DA, who's on the witness list, Michael Morrissey on the witness list. Will be interesting to see if he actually shows up. We haven't heard much from him since he made those really outrageous and inappropriate public comments prior to trial number 1.
Yeah.
They're gagged now. It's okay to be gagged now, but that guy shooting off his mouth early on was so inappropriate.
Yeah. Paranoia 7. It's like, I think paranoia, you should add like a 007 into that, because it's such a, I'm watching behind, but I swear, Will the Glower is your free advertisement. There's not one appearance of him not promoting you guys. What it is when people come on here, we treat them fairly. We actually try to treat everybody fairly. We would do that if the prosecution came on to ask them the questions. We treat them as adults. We try to give people respect when they're on, because we've been on the other side where people kind of try to lambaste you and disrespect you and bot at you and all sorts of stuff. And that's not us, So I think that once we treat people fairly, we end up with a certain reputation for people that, yes, they may try to promote us because they know that we're going to give a fair side, and we're not going to hold back. Well, anyone from the prosecution who wants to come on, we'll hear them too.
Of course, absolutely. Of course. And we have comments at times that people are like the one we read earlier. They're definitely not in the free care and read camp, which is fine.
Right. And we're not in the free care and read camp.
We're in the Justice Served TV camp.
We're making sure that in a case, the prosecution has to prove a case beyond a reasonable doubt. Because if this were your child on trial, your husband on trial, your son on trial, your family member on trial, that's what they'd have to do there. And we want to make sure it's done for everybody in the United States. And if they prove their case beyond a reasonable doubt, so be it.
That's right. So as to Will, hopefully we'll be on there maybe Friday. That was the last note that I sent him. But he always has some nice things to say. Good thing I bought him that beer when last time I was in Canton. I'm sure that.
So I think you missed a question, by the way. Discworld Edge Witch. Yeah.
Where's Edge Witch?
Discworld Edge Witch Why doesn't the defense make more of an issue with the timeline not making sense? Because you talked about this to me before we went on the air.
Oh, yeah. In fact, I'm going to do
Karen,
some research on that. Where's that question? I don't see that question.
It's above Nina 79.
Okay.
Okay, it's above Nina 79, and we're never going to get through all these questions before.
Okay,
we're going to
go
have to
ahead.
do a show that we just answer like 3 hours of backed up questions. Okay, why doesn't the defense make more of an issue with the timeline not making sense? Karen was on John's Wi-Fi before the alleged incident happened. 12:45, according to Lally, Jen, and Trooper Paul.
Yeah. So here's the deal, and I'm going to run this next week, maybe Monday when I go up there. The theory is that Karen Reed logged on automatically to John O'Keefe's Wi-Fi when she got at or near his house, right?
Right.
So, and that was supposedly at 12:36, right? In the first trial, even in the opening statement, Lally is saying that the incident took place at 12:45. Well, how is that possible that, if she was already hooked onto the Wi-Fi at Officer John O'Keefe's, then she could not have been there running him over with the car. So one of the issues is how long does it take to get from 34 Fairview to 1 Meadow? I always get the street confused. Meadow something.
Yeah, it's that confusion that got Hank Brennan in trouble a little bit today.
It is Meadow something.
Yeah.
So I'm going to run that, drive that, even though it won't be obviously at 12:30 at night. I'm not that crazy, and it ain't going to be at the start of a blizzard, but it'll still give some sense of what that route looks like and how long it takes to get there. So I think it's going to be a bigger issue in trial number 2 than it was in trial number 1.
So we're going to see that.
Meadows, thank you, Scott.
Meadows, yes, thank you, Scott. So we're going to see that when you go up on. When do you think we're going to see that? Tuesday, then?
I don't know. I'm going to do it. If I do it early enough Monday, I'll just post it or
post it, and then we can talk about it on the show.
Yeah.
Martha Chapman, thank you for the donation. You think defense could request flipping courtroom seating such that Reed's family is seated to her left and O'Keefe family behind the fence, solving the problem of Karen looking back and Paul stares. I give that to you, Michael, because you have seen. You've been in the courtroom. He's been in the courtroom.
It's such. I mean, you can tell from looking at it. It's kind of like theater in the round. I describe it. The camera angle that we all get to see is basically the jury. That's what the jury sees as they're looking out. But it's because it's there's a place in the Bay Area called Circle Star Theater back in the day, and it's theater in the round where the performer's on the stage in the middle and everybody's sitting around it. And you've got like 3/4 of that here. So if you're in the jury, you're looking straight across to the O'Keefe family, right? And the supporters for Karen are behind her. I'm not counting a couple of others that are up on the press row, I call it. But yeah, I mean, I don't think they're going to do that. I think they don't make those accommodations. They've done what they've done, and now they're into this autopilot mode where everybody knows where they're going to sit. They're not going to change that. But I understand it's an issue because the sight lines are very important in this case. I'm not sure if I'm on the jury. I mean, everything is very close. So it's not like you can't see everybody. But without even trying, you're staring right across the defense table into the O'Keefe family.
Oh, interesting. Rhonda Hall, by the way, has joined us. She has become a YouTube member. Thank you, Rhonda. That is really wonderful. And before we get to another question, or let's do Glenda Carnes. Thank you for your donation. Love you both. My side, your side. May we meet in the middle. Yes, maybe that's right. Maybe may we meet where logic prevails and justice is served. That's our viewpoint. That's why we named this show Justice Served TV.
But I thought I just woke up one morning and that came to my head. Remember when we were fighting? I mean, we were discussing this. it was originally Bryant and Baden.
Well, then we got shadow banned.
Well, then we got shadow banned.
Right,
and I told you, I said, I don't want to be the first named. I don't want to be the why. It's not even alphabetical. And you're like,
know why?
No,
Can I just tell you all why he wouldn't
then
do it?
I thought it was because I'd be sued.
Right. Yeah. He thought that I wanted him to go first because he'd be sued. And I said, no, you should go first because you have an Emmy and I just win murder cases. Okay.
Yeah. So anyway, then we said, well, there's got to be a name. And we had, how long was that list of names we came up with? It was,
oh my gosh.
It was so long. And then so Justice Served came to the front and now it's really what we are. So
Justice Served TV. Yes.
I see that we have our special guest queued up. You want to hit one more question before
one more question. Yeah, one more question because this isn't.
You have a different list than I do, apparently.
What's that? I had well, and also, we're going to have to. We talk about doing a day that we tape and then we do a premiere. We have like 800 questions still backed up, that we
Yeah,
haven't gotten
I'm
to.
pretty sure we're not going to
Yeah.
get to them all, but we're
No,
trying.
no, but
Okay.
this is an important one. Since John O'Keefe had also been drinking, isn't it possible that he may have just fallen, somehow hit his head, and eventually passed away? I have been saying that when I was on Law and Crime. Remember, I said to you, if I were coming to this case, I know the defense is fighting hard because they think that he's beaten up, and maybe that's true. Maybe the injuries show that he's beaten up. But the other way to deal with it is that, look, he's so drunk, he passed out. He, or he fell because he's stumbling in the snow. He falls backward, and we've seen it. You see it here. People fall backwards, getting off a sidewalk, and hitting their head and die. And he passed away, and that is truly an accident. One of the ways that you can die, right? Natural, accident, suicide, or homicide, and then the undetermined
or undetermined, which is
not, but that's
an
not in
issue
the
in this
manner of
case.
death. Yeah.
So and we've talked about this a lot, and there are many ways that
Right.
That maybe he was even resting against the car, because he was a little tipsy, or had an arm against the car, and she pulls off, and there he goes. Now, of course, that's contrary to her testimony, which says she's basically saw him walk toward the front door.
And the police are saying that she backed up 24 miles an hour straight.
Yes.
No,
yeah. That's where they found out. They say from the different, geolocation information that she moved a second time. Again, Jen McCabe's testimony makes it sound like that happened, or she basically created enough distance between herself and where John O'Keefe was last standing that she could back up and hit that 24-mile-an-hour target. Seems to me like it's, confirmation bias. Like, here's what we need. This is what we need.
Right.
You need to prove that there was room and time for that to happen. So let's just get there.
Yeah.
It doesn't seem to square with some of the other testimony.
Right. And all. Okay, so we have a lot more questions, but we're not going to get to them right now. Maybe
hey, you know what?
Some of them.
I just thought of something.
We can have Olivia
first of all,
answer something.
Thanks to Lumpy, aka Who We Blew, member for a month. Thank you. When we have our
Linda
guest
Michaels,
on,
wait a second. Let's wait. The community and Linda Michaels mods. Let's give credit. Let's read the whole thing.
Oh.
Credit to the moderators. Bravo. Absolutely. The producers and the moderators. Absolutely.
I'd give a standing ovation, but I have no pants on. Okay, so
stop.
We could
a standing ovation, but we're hooked in. You see, we have, just so you know, we are wired in. We have wires in our ears, wires onto the computers, wires everywhere. So we're not moving. So
thanks. She's like Texas. You a YouTube member now. Thank you. Appreciate that. What I was going to say is we have our guest coming on here. Doesn't mean we can't throw some questions around, right?
Absolutely.
Okay,
Absolutely.
so we can audibilize. Who knows? But for now, let me get rid of that so I can make room for our guest. I've decided that our guest should have only one name. So I think it's just like Cher, Madonna, right? So in this case, this new guest happens to be Olivia. Olivia, how are you?
Hello.
Welcome.
Hi, Olivia
I'm
Nile.
doing great. How are you guys?
Good. And you want to tell people you're Olivia Nile. Your Twitter handle, X Twitter is at Olivia Lambo, right?
Yes, that's correct. I know I have different identities.
You're in the witness protection program. I get it. All right. No problem.
Exactly.
So
I'll tell you a story about a client of mine who said he was in the witness protection program. It was wild, man.
Yikes. We've stolen a lot of your stuff before, Olivia, which is one of the reasons we wanted to reach out to you and thank you, on the air live, because you do such great work. Give us the backstory. I ask this of most folks that we meet through this process, in part because I'm lazy and it's just a simple question. But it's, how did you get into this? What drew you to this case, and what's your background?
Yeah. So, well, I'm originally from Massachusetts, so I'm, I guess a local. I'm not from Norfolk County, but I'm from Massachusetts, and so DA Michael Morrissey's name is a familiar name, and I heard about this story back in 2023, and really started following it. Oh gosh, I want to say probably in like the summer of 2023, and then when I was, looking into the coverage of it online on Twitter and, from the various different channels like Court TV and Law and Crime who cover court cases.
That's where we were. We started covering this case, the first trial, when we were hosts of Law and Crime.
Okay, yeah, I was gonna say you guys were at Law and Crime. I remember you've both mentioned that before. And speaking of which, I have to get back to a story about that after this. But yeah, so I just had seen a lot of coverage of the case, and then on Twitter is where I was really going to, you know, find what details I could, and online. I was just hungry to read as many court documents as I could get my hands on. And that's really when things changed for me, because I was reading through the court documents and nothing added up, nothing made sense. And these were by and large the Commonwealth documents. I mean, I remember when I first read the police reports from the first responding Canton Police Department officers. So, you know, the most contemporaneous accounting of what the, you know, Jem McCabe, Karen Reed, the witnesses on the scene were saying. It was completely in contradiction with like the Commonwealth's narrative. So that the main red flag for me though was seeing procedurally how things were happening, because I'm used to seeing in most criminal cases the prosecution being the ones who are eager to bring more evidence in, right? Like usually it's the defendant who's trying to suppress evidence and keep evidence out, because typically it's incriminating or it's damning. And it was the exact opposite in this case. You know, everything actually felt like it was backwards in this case. And I was like, why is the defendant asking for, you know, phone records for people who were at the crime scene at the time of the alleged murder? That's something the state usually already has, you know? And then I was like, and why is the state opposing these requests? So just kind of looking at the procedural history at that time, I was befuddled by what was going on, and that just raised more suspicion for me. And yeah, ever since I started reading the court documents, and I read those probably way too much, but you know, it's like every time I revisit a court document in this case, I notice something new I didn't notice the last time, or what have you. So that's kind of what drew me in initially, and it's been a roller coaster ride ever since, just following along.
Wow.
So you guys were introduced to it at Law and Crime when you're covering?
Right. Yeah.
Okay.
We were introduced at Law and Crime. As a matter of fact, that's when Michael Bryant first bought. I don't know if he has it right there. He actually went out and bought his own with his own money. Not only the tail light and the car, he had the tail light.
Not the real car.
Not the real car, but a little.
We're not quite there yet.
What the car looked like, right?
Yeah.
I think we were the first. We were the first ones who did that, because you want to know what it is that you're covering.
Yeah, and here was the timing on that, because I've used props for different cases since I can't even remember the first time. This was actually,
usually it was my hairspray.
I did use her hair. I always said Linda's the only one I've ever known that has prescription hairspray. But you know, this car is pretty cool. You know, it's got all the doors open and the rear end open. Anyway, so this is the model, the 570. I used this on the air to do some demonstration, and I had also bought this, but I hadn't had a chance to smash it until when they removed us from the air. So I had to smash this for part of our Justice Served demonstration purposes.
And is that just a taillight, or is it the exact same?
You know, I've looked at it closely. It's from the model. I can't guarantee it's from the year, but it's certainly the material, the structure, the force needed to break it, which is really the key. Right. It is all identical. Yeah, it's all the same polycarbonates. So
exactly. Yeah, it gives you the gist of the strength of that polycarbonate.
Yeah, I just can't imagine a human arm doing that kind of damage without other things happening, like, I don't know, your arm ripping from your body.
Right.
I can't imagine. So that's one of the things
Or
that
any
first made me
bruising.
yeah, exactly. That's one of the first things that made me think, something weird going on here. That's just physics.
Well, and I came from a different viewpoint. Yeah, as you all know, my husband is a forensic pathologist, Dr. Michael Baden. And when I started my prosecution career, I was assigned to the evidence unit, and well before I even met Michael, married Michael, and was doing forensics. I don't see how you can get a guilty conviction, honestly, in this country, if you can't decide when your two state medical examiners, not that there's a disagreement between the state and the defense or vice versa, but two state medical examiners said they could not determine this was a homicide. And one of them apparently felt pressured by the police to change her opinion. So if you can't get the medical examiner, two of them who say, and then also said the injuries could be consistent with a dog attack, also said they could be consistent with beating up. I don't see how the jury gets beyond that. And maybe that has to be, in my opinion, more of a focus this time around. Okay. Because the state is going out and hiring now a neurosurgeon to try to get around the cause of death by having a different mechanism of death.
Right.
Not the cause of death, the manner of death, I should say, by having a different mechanism. And that to me is garbage. If they have their case, their people won't say it's a homicide. Two of them won't say it's a homicide. The FBI wouldn't say it's a homicide. So now they're going to bring in a special prosecutor who is bringing all these people in, who's going to tell them what they want to hear, okay, to try to get the conviction.
Right.
And to me, that's morally, ethically, and completely wrong. It's certainly not justice served. But anyhow, that's my little rant.
Well, it's I think that's why people take such issue with this case. And quite frankly, regardless of where you fall on innocence or guilt, just looking at it through the lens of, a prosecutor's duty and their ethical obligations. If you're going out to hire people to give you the opinion you want rather than following the truth and following the evidence, and also, making a good faith effort to really investigate the evidence and the truth, right, rather than pursuing the girl and trying to pursue this person. And I mean, it's really troubling. I was thinking about this the other day after they said that the Hank Brennan had indicated to them, the defense, that they weren't planning on calling their medical examiner at this upcoming trial. And then what you said, how they've hired this neurosurgeon, and they're basically trying to, I think, I forget who it was from the defense team, said back into a manner of death or something like that.
Right. They're trying to back into by replacing mechanism of death with cause of death. Kelly Reed, thank you very much for joining us. We really appreciate that you're joining us. And I think everyone who's followed Olivia loves Olivia and all trying to get to the truth. Thank you very, very much for joining us here. Yeah. So that's so that's so as we said, that's not so we want to ask you then, Olivia, what was the most glaring thing that you saw? If you had to pick one thing, what's the most glaring thing that you see that this is a total unfair prosecution? This is a total get you, and to try to get Karen Reed.
Oh my gosh! Wow.
I know it's a hard one. We ask the hard questions here, so we're going to put you to the test.
I think. It's so hard to really limit it down to one because there's so many. But I think that, trying to think like where they've really tried to hold the defense's hands behind their back.
While you're thinking, one of the things that we do as a defense attorneys, by the way, yes, I know it's a tough question, Jay.
Yeah.
As defense attorneys,
an embarrassment of riches.
Is when we do closings, and I try to give a little trade secrets out here. You try to get the jury, right, to argue in that jury room points that are on your favor. and you give them these
Yes.
tidbits in the defense. So usually, a juror will grab onto something, right? So I'm asking you, you were in that jury room. The tidbit that you're giving to argue against a person who may have a viewpoint that possibly the prosecution, either prove this case or that they believe Karen Read did something, even if they don't know what it was.
Yeah, it's a very it seems to be a very effective tactic because, you could think of it in the sense that the jurors, when they're going back to that jury room to deliberate, if you equip them with like that ammo, it can make jurors, advocates in a way, or advocates of a position, and um or better informed to be advocates of their position that they believe in. And something, so I guess to that point, something that was probably the biggest red flag to me in the beginning and still sticks with me is you've got a murder, a homicide, where the victim is a Boston police officer, and there was no surveillance footage evidence, and there was no effort made to obtain any surveillance footage. And moreover, I mean, one of the big things in the beginning, for people who started following the case early on, early on for me was like in 2023, um was at that time one of the big controversies was that the 2 minutes during which Karen Read allegedly drove by the Canton Public Library on her way home after dropping John off at 34 Fairview, those 2 minutes just mysteriously, inexplicably were excised out of the footage the defense received in discovery. And it's like, when you start to hear all of these things, but that in particular, it's like something's really not right here. And then, you come to learn that the neighbor that lives directly across the street from where the alleged crime scene is, and where the state is claiming this car collision happened, um they didn't even bother to get that ring camera footage, and it's from a fellow Canton police officer who lives in that house. um but beyond that, I mean, they didn't even attempt to get any ring footage or any security camera footage from any of the neighbors or houses along Fairview Road or along that route home. I mean, to only go and try and get surveillance footage from one point along the drive home and then it vanishes, and it's confound it there's no good explanation for that.
I
It's the
think.
first.
No,
Sorry,
go
go
ahead.
ahead.
Go ahead.
Well, it's just, it's the first thing you always see police do in any investigation. The first thing that they do is they go and pull surveillance footage, canvas for surveillance footage, right? And that was avoided in this case. Why?
So here's what I think. Can I play this game? The game. What one thing made the biggest impression? Can I play this game? For me, it's still this thing right here, because I can't envision the murder weapon causing the injuries that are claimed in this case that led ultimately to his death. I just can't. Everything else supports either this conspiracy or why are they hiding this or what. It all still boils down to what caused the death. And I can't get past it. I can't get past the theory that she somehow bumped into him even at 24 miles an hour, caused the damage that would have been necessary to this taillight, that would have caused the damage to his arm, that would have incapacitated him, leading him to stumble, fall, and ultimately die of exposure. I mean, to me, that's it. It's the murder weapon. I just can't get past it.
And that's, I mean, that's probably the better point here, because it ultimately goes to the most important thing at issue, right? Like the liability and directly establishing liability. And I agree with you. I mean, between the lack of expected injuries. You know, there's no bumper marks. There's really no injury below the neck. There's no bruising, no fractured bones below the neck. That is something that is so anomalistic from any pedestrian car accident that I've ever heard of. And, you know, I'm not an expert, but the experts who've testified about it have said the same. And then, of course, when you add in the text messages about how they were trying to pressure the medical examiner, you know, it really makes you question if they were following the evidence at all here.
Yeah, that's a real, you know, I dislike people trying to pressure other people to you know, come to an opinion or to change an opinion, especially since here, let me get your take on this. Proctor says 19 hours, the Proctor factor, as we call him, says 19 hours after this happens, he absolutely identifies Karen Reed, comes to the conclusion that Karen Reed,
16 hours.
16 hours,
Yes.
apologize. I gave him a 3-hour benefit.
Yeah. And as he, remember when he testified, it wasn't just a few hours. It was 16 hours. It was 16 hours. Oh, please, dude.
That Karen Reed was guilty and she had committed murder, and that was it. There hadn't been an autopsy, there hadn't been anything yet, right? Done. Does that tell you that perhaps maybe he got into her phone, and that's what this whole thing about getting Turtle Boy's phone, the Aiden Carney's phone, is that he actually got into her phone and saw what was in there, and it wasn't like, oh, we see 2 messages that may be attorney-client privilege, that he actually read the phone and decided, this looks like a good suspect here.
Well, the only problem I have with that is that he seized Karen Reed's phone on January 29th, that same day, by 4:12 p.m. So he had her phone in his possession by 4:12 p.m. I can't imagine, you know, and that's after he had been, I think, you know, at her parents' house in Dighton for presumably an hour or so, speaking with her. And so she didn't get back to Dighton that long before that. I can't imagine she was really having much attorney-client privilege conversations yet on that phone. It's certainly an interesting theory because, you know, if there was something that could perhaps explain why he was so, or why he claims he was so certain, you know, and fixed on this suspect. But I think there's other reasons that can also explain that. I mean, one of the things that I find incredibly troubling is why he didn't recuse himself when the moment he found out that he knows and to quote his own mother from a Facebook post, is second family with the Alberts, you know, why he didn't recuse himself at that moment, that he knows potential suspects, or just even people involved are people that he's known his whole life, and he's, you know, close enough to be second family with. And then beyond that, to go on for the next 2 years of pretrial litigation, both him, the Alberts, and McCabe's to all deny that fact, and the prosecution to deny that fact, that's very troubling to me. You know, if there wasn't something problematic about that relationship, then why hide that truth? You know, why deny that?
I know that's kind of a rhetorical question because I think we know why Proctor, because he's a douchebag. But anyway, hey, do you have any specific questions, LKB, or do you want to share some of our questions and get some extra input on them?
Yeah, I'd like to share some of our questions because people.
You okay with that, Olivia? Can we do that?
Yeah, and
some
I have
pointed
some questions for you guys.
Oh,
So
well,
okay,
you go
good.
ahead.
Oh, you go ahead first.
well, I've just been thinking about, the recent motions in limine and the ones that the judge has ruled on thus far. And given that you guys are both attorneys, there's some things that I'd love to hear your input on. So the one of those things I put on my list was about the Corey record checks of prospective jurors. I remember, Linda, you mentioned when you practiced in Massachusetts for the Aaron Hernandez case, I think you mentioned that the prosecution also used Corey checks in that
Right.
case, if I'm not
That's correct.
mistaken.
Yeah, right.
Okay. So
Right.
I guess my question is, in your guys' experience, how common is that request by prosecutors in criminal cases? Like, when do you typically see that employed, and who usually runs those Corey checks?
Well, I can tell you, California, it's not unusual. I wouldn't say it's routine, but it happens, and it depends on who's making the request. It's not difficult information to get, that's for sure.
Mm-hmm.
So if I'm on the defense, I want it. Prosecution sometimes does, sometimes doesn't, in my experience. But I always wanted it, and I would ask for it and get it in California. So it varies, I'm sure, state to state.
It's varies state to state. And sometimes the prosecutors just get it and then share it as Brady material, or it's not really Brady material, but they just share it as discovery material that they have on it. But jurors don't know. That's the problem I have, is jurors generally don't know that that's been done. Okay.
Oh, they don't
Now,
know that?
yeah. So yeah, they're gonna come in. They don't know that the state police is gotten the records. They've run. They've asked the state police to run the Corey checks or whatever like that. They generally don't know that. And we have a question on that. Sui generis says, how does background check make future jurors feel about serving for their communities? Who wants to serve after this? Slippery slope. Yeah, I mean, that's it. It's a problem because jurors can come in and feel like all of a sudden they're behind the eight ball. What if there is somebody who has had a misdemeanor and in the community didn't know about it, but it comes up on a check somehow? Okay, in some states a misdemeanor would not come up, but in other states it may, because depending on how you class a misdemeanor in one state may be a felony in another state, as we see. So
I do think it's important that this is not really publicly disseminated information, right? It's information the parties will know, may use it to question the jurors, may use it to excuse a juror, but it's not like they're handing out leaflets, around the courthouse.
Right, of course.
Yeah, but things get out. I mean, I'm always a firm believer. I think things get out. I don't think there's anything
these days, really,
secret.
if I want to find out about your criminal history, Linda, I'm going to find out. I mean, if you really want to know.
I did get stopped for speeding, and the cop checked me out and then let me go. I just want to let you know.
It's such a sexist thing I'm about to say. Same thing happened with my wife just the other day. I'm like, I would never get out of that, ever. So, hey, okay, you have any more questions before we get into our group questions, Olivia?
Yeah. Let me see. Here we go. Oh, okay. So something I was also curious about, what do you guys think about because something that stands out to me in this trial or this case is how many witnesses, particularly third party culprits, have retained their own criminal defense attorneys. I mean, I've never seen that in any other criminal case that I've followed. My question for you guys is, how do you guys feel about if the defense on cross-examination was to go into that, ask them if they have an attorney, how much have they paid their attorney? Ask about why they, or maybe not why they retain the attorney, but kind of go into that and really highlight it to the jury.
Here's what's going to happen. Objection. Irrelevant. Well, they won't say. Well, you can't say the reason.
You can't say it. Not with her court.
Objection sustained. Okay, the judge will find that it's irrelevant whether they retained an attorney. or not, because they have a constitutional right to have an attorney if somebody is accusing them falsely or rightly of a crime. So I see that.
You think she will sustain that
I
objection?
think she will sustain that objection.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I know that one is one of those kind of slippery slopes, because I could see it easily, even if she didn't sustain the objection, I could see it easily being something where those witnesses, kind of go into the whole harassment thing, or something that is not maybe helpful. But in any event, okay. My other question is, okay, last question. In your guys' experience with impeachment evidence, are you accustomed to judges forcing you, having to turn over that impeachment evidence to opposing counsel? And doesn't this defeat the entire purpose of impeachment?
Okay, we've talked about this. I can answer that.
Yeah, go ahead.
All right, let me start. If you have impeachment evidence in most states now, and this is also in the federal court, you have to turn it over. And yet, us attorneys hate that. Okay, we hate that, because the whole idea is to have impeachment evidence is to surprise the person, so that they get up on the stand and they prevaricate, or they don't, tell the truth, and you impeach them with something that you have that they may not know that you have. In federal courts, you got to turn it over. In most state courts now, you have to turn it over. And if you don't turn it over, you won't be allowed to use it. So now that seems to be the way of the world. It was not maybe 20, 30 years ago, but that's the way of the world now.
Yeah, it's definitely changed, because with my axiom, a surprise a day, it's a lot harder to have the surprise a day if you have to disclose that kind of information. So it has changed. California is not as strict about it. Not federal court, I mean, state court's not as strict about it. But it is definitely changing. There's some perception that makes the playing field more fair. I don't like it.
Now, it's not. That's not to say. For instance, and there's a variation. You remember the whole thing of the Sally Port with Yuri Buchanan, right? And the defense let him testify. And then when they got the cross, they said, "And you weren't going to tell that jury, right? Unless we brought it to you that Sally Port video was inverted." That's impeachment, but it's not really the impeachment we're talking about, because it's not a third issue. It's not something outside the testimony that you can damage them with.
Right. That information's already within discovery.
Right.
Okay, that's interesting. And oh shoot, I just lost my follow-up
question. Take your time. I know we're scary sometimes.
Yeah, I mean, it seems like with a lot of the ruling, I mean, yeah, I think you guys have spoken about this at great length, but with a lot of the rulings, it's like, it just seems like the defense team is having their hands completely tied behind their backs. And
yeah, I mean, that's led everybody to just question Judge Bev's bias. Sometimes it just seems so obvious. I go into it thinking, I give her the benefit of the doubt, but every time one of these decisions is made that seems so clearly biased, slanted, prejudicial to one side over another, you just start thinking, what's the motivation? And it gets back to some of the questions we've had about, isn't somebody overseeing this case? Isn't somebody seeing the same stuff that, I'm just looking at it, common sense, just to, as if I were, a passerby. I have no dog in this race, as they say. But it just starts to look like there's got to be some motivation to be answering some of the simplest questions sometimes in a way that looks so anti-defense.
Yeah, especially after that Crosby decision.
Yeah, Kathy Helfelt became a YouTube member. Yeah, the Crosby decision. Thank you, Kathy. Yeah, I mean, but this happens, and we complain about as defense attorneys all the time. The process about about 15 years ago, there was a whole commission set up by the federal government to talk about forensic science in the courtroom, and how there has to be the gatekeeper after you have the Daubert decision and all. But the courts always let it in for the prosecutors, no matter what. The defense wants to bring something in. It's like, well, let's go have the Daubert hearing. Let's do this. Let's have grave concerns. And this is not something unusual. This happens in almost every single case. You feel like when you're a defense attorney that you are sitting there and the judge is part of the prosecution team. And usually interestingly enough, judges have been prosecutors, right? So they kind of have that bent. Judge Beverly Cannelli was a defense attorney for many years, public defender.
Right.
So something happened, in my opinion, with that whole ARCA thing, that somehow she thought she and the jury were being lied to, right? And because you saw a turnaround, you saw a turnaround of how she's treating the defense, here. So,
Oh yeah, yeah.
I
There
think
was
it got
definitely
worse. I think it was there, but I think it definitely got magnified at whatever she thinks happened with the ACA.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. I mean, I think because I've gone back and tried to, like see if I can pinpoint what has really made her have this. It's outward. I mean, you can, with between like the size and even just um how she sustains or with the objections. When it's the defense, she's like, I'll allow it, like she's doing them a favor, but with the prosecution it's like sustained, which is usually the standard verbiage, um or sustained or overruled. But I think it was when the defense requested her to recuse herself that was when things really got kind of personal, and ever since then it's been quite the challenge.
Yeah,
So
I would agree with that. That was clearly, on a human level, of course, she's going to be a little annoyed at that,
mhm.
So,
but that's the danger you take when you make a motion to recuse. That's the
yes,
problem. But you have to do it.
Yep.
You
yeah.
have to do it.
And how often is it successful? Not very, not very
No,
often,
not a.
not very
The only
often.
time we've seen,
And then you're stuck.
we
Right.
saw the case in Florida, Michael, who we interviewed. His name escapes me now. Where he made a motion, the judge wouldn't recuse, but then later on took himself off the case, but wouldn't grant the motion to recuse. The gentleman who then got arrested. We interviewed him on the show. He represented himself pro se.
Oh, a Ty Tucker case.
Ty
Oh,
Tucker
the
case.
treehouse.
Yeah,
Yeah,
the treehouse
treehouse.
murder
Yeah.
case. Yeah.
Yeah.
But then the judge took himself off the case, right?
Interesting.
So
Seems
but
a little egotistical.
yeah, judges egotistical.
Yeah.
Okay, so should we share some of these questions with Olivia and get her input?
Yeah.
Let's see if I can get back to the moment we wrapped it up before. Let's see. I think we got to a lot of them, but obviously,
Well, there's one
more.
question right to her, right there. Start.
There is? Which one?
Yeah.
Let's see.
Well, why don't you do this first?
Let me find it. Oh, you mean on our chat?
Mhm,
There's a question. Oh, then go ahead. Do that.
Just directly to Olivia. There's a question.
Fire away.
Okay. L.A. Olivia, you had mentioned that Hank, and that's Hank Brennan, knows the McAlberts personally via youth hockey. Can you please talk more about that and make sense, like Proctor taking his buddy McAlbert's word as gospel?
Really putting me on the spot there. Well, I first heard, I want to say Aiden reported this, that he was connected to the McAlberts because people found on his Hank Brennan's Facebook that he was connected or friends with friends of the McAlberts. And then I believe after that, after he, if assuming it was him who published that story, Hank Brennan either deleted his Facebook or made everything like ultra private, something like that. And then I've just gotten other reports. Now I've discussed that, but it's not something that I stated as fact, of course, because I don't have a photograph or a receipt that can really establish something like people being connected through their kids or through hockey. But I have received a number of reports that I find to be credible, that there are those connectors. Now, the problem, of course, if you're the defense and you have information like that, the problem is it's like it's kind of loose. How do you really establish that if you were to raise it, as a conflict or as a concern? I don't really know how you would go about that. But it's certainly interesting. And but just as an aside, I mean, I personally I find the concept of this, I mean, it's a problem, I think, that this DA's office couldn't find anybody within its own office. They have 61 plus attorneys, at the Norfolk County DA's office, but nobody there was capable or competent of prosecuting round two. And it makes you wonder if that's because, prosecutors, they have ethical obligations, and they're not supposed to pursue prosecution of cases that they don't have a good faith belief they can prove beyond a reasonable doubt. So is that why
Yeah,
none of the other ADAs wanted to
that's
take
an
it on?
interesting slant, because most people have just said it's because they felt they couldn't get what they needed out of the in-house counsel. Maybe Lolly's the example, the poster boy for that. But you're suggesting maybe all of them felt it was unethical, and they opted out of the opportunity. That's an interesting take. Of course, we'll never know, but it seems they have a special prosecutor for everything in
Right.
Norfolk
And
County.
and
Uh,
for this, it wasn't for a conflict in this instance, because ADA Lally and McLaughlin are still sitting up there at council table with Hank Brennan.
Poor
And
schmuck.
and the other thing that I just find ethically, I guess, questionable or concerning about the utilization of special prosecutors is, uh prosecutors are supposed to be in pursuit of justice and the truth, right? And
Mhm.
they're to be held to a higher ethical standard in that sense. Defense attorneys, the priorities and the ethical obligations of defense attorneys versus prosecutors is very different. And when it comes to special prosecutors, they're being paid, usually they're being paid for prosecuting this given case. And so are they being motivated by the pursuit of justice and truth, or are they being motivated by that paycheck and meeting, those milestones to get that money that they've been promised? It seems like it introduces into the mix some ethically questionable, I guess, factors when you think about how the special prosecutors compensated and what would motivate them.
Well, let me ask you a different bet. When I was listening the other day, and we've been covering this case, um, they decided to try this case in like a New York millisecond, right? Retry this case, right? I forget what the timing was exactly, but it
It was really
was,
within minutes of
yeah.
the
I thought it
hung
was
jury
quick.
mistrial.
Usually, you wait till the next day, or
Oh, when they
you
put that
reconvene.
announcement out?
Yeah.
Right, when they
Yeah.
put the announcement out, it was quick. At that point, just before the case ended, the prosecutor of the county learns that, before the trial just starts and they have the ARCA, that the investigation, whatever the federal investigation was, and we don't exactly know, right? We don't know if it's for Karen Reed. We don't know if it was for Morrissey's office. We don't know if it was for Morrissey. We don't know if it was for Proctor. We don't know if it was for relating to the Sandra Birchmore case. We don't really know the question that was presented that to the grand jury, right? That the grand jury was
Hmm.
using its investigative role is. Would it make sense, maybe because I'm Italian, okay, that I think this way, that indeed the reason why you go hire Hank Brennan, who was a prosecutor, who was Whitey Bulger's counsel for like 6 years. I mean, he got paid over $2 million from the government, according to the stories I read, he and his partner. Tough lawyer, whether you like him or not, tough lawyer, tough cross-examiner, tough adversary. If you want to give a payback because you think Karen Reed and her defense attorney got this investigation started against you or your office or involving your office, you go out and hire this guy, the gunslinger, to come in because you want the payback against Karen Reed and their defense attorneys, not necessarily justice. What do you think about that theory?
I mean, I think there's certainly legs to it, because I've also found it peculiar why a prosecutor's office or a DA's office would usually a defense attorney, because I know Hank Brennan, he has his own private defense firm now. He's a practicing defense attorney. It seems like an odd pick to go out and find somebody who's that's kind of their main drive, their main focus. I mean, it's not unheard of because he's still an attorney and apparently has prosecutorial experience, but I guess also just the optics of it, when Hank Brennan's claim to fame, and I think what most people know him for, is his representation of Whitey Bulger. And so, uh, and he's known as a criminal defense attorney, and he's also known for being very vocal, in the public, in the media, about his feelings, his distaste for the federal government. And so, it's an interesting pick in that sense. I mean, my first thoughts about it was like, it seems like the DA's office hired this guy, and also with how he's approached the case pre-trial, it seems like the DA's office has kind of gone out and hired this guy to defend themselves and defend, their witnesses, or the third party culprits, and um to try and I guess insinuate or create this narrative about the federal government, and there's something nefarious about the federal government's involvement here. I mean, that's something that is just laughable to me, that he was saying at the recent hearing on Thursday, was how Hank Brennan was getting up there and trying to suggest that the defense having any relationship with the federal government. We don't know about this relationship. We weren't invited. We don't have a relationship, and to insinuate that it's problematic and concerning that the defense does,
it's wrong. It's wrong, right?
Yeah.
It's wrong because
right.
it's feeding into Judge Cannoni's theory that somehow the wool was thrown over her eyes. That they do.
I think they've taken that pearl clutching grave concerns moment. The
pearl clutch. I
prosecution
don't have my
has,
pearls on tonight. I can't clutch them.
and constantly keep poking, because
Yeah.
she is so concerned that they know they got a winner as a subject, so they know the more they beat on that, the better for their case, and the more it incenses, I guess, Judge Bev about whatever that relationship was. Because I'm sure when they found that invoice and the cryptic email, there were two of them, they thought, oh man, this is it. This is a winner. We're going to get those ACA witnesses out of this trial, which would be an amazing thing for the prosecution, because it was such an amazing thing for the defense. It still is. I don't care if they're watered down a little bit because the murkiness of the relationship. I don't think that's going to be.
Except they have to testify in a hearing before they go on the stand again.
We'll see if that. I don't know. We'll see if that happens or not. I don't know. That was a little soft. We'll see.
It's just so unfair.
Why would you have another voir dire of the witnesses?
Oh, that's what she said. She said,
why
are we allowing this case to go forward when you have Proctor in this case? By the way, does Proctor testify for the prosecution, Olivia, in your opinion?
Oh, it doesn't sound like it. And I mean, after hearing that, it doesn't sound like, or that they've represented, at least to the defense, that they're not going to be even calling their own medical examiner.
Well, that's on one little issue, but the Proctor factor is huge. So you think they can get by without him?
That's what I'm saying. If they're not going to call their medical examiner, who's not problematic in the way Proctor is, then it lends more credence to the notion that they wouldn't call Proctor, who obviously creates a lot of problems for them. And I mean, that's the other thing. It's like, at a certain point, you have to wonder why this prosecutor, or why this prosecution needs to hire a new prosecutor, needs to get rid of the lead investigator, needs to get rid of the medical examiner who conducted the victim's autopsy, and needs to go out and hire all new outside experts, basically manufacture or buy new evidence, if you will. It's concerning.
Hey, I have a question that I think is right up your alley. It comes from one of our folks who wrote into us, and I know I get the sense you're totally into a lot of these details. You've done some work with those photos from the Sally Port, which we stole, where you were marking what
Yeah.
potential software might have been used and the color of the texts and the graphics, which was very interesting stuff. So I get the feeling you're kind of into that. This is a question. Let me bring it back up here. This is a question that is actually from somebody who's definitely not in the pro Karen Reed camp. So let's see if you can help answer this for us here. This is from No Strays. How do Karen Reed's lawyers reconcile Officer John O'Keefe getting into a fight to the death with 3 grown men and a dog without any of their DNA being found under his nails or anywhere on his body? Question mark, question mark. Any initial thoughts on that?
Well, the question assumes it assumes something that is not in evidence. They didn't test John's body or even sample anywhere from his body for DNA. And meanwhile, the evidence that the prosecution uses to try and create a forensic link between John O'Keefe, the victim, and Karen Reed's vehicle is the presence of his DNA on a piece of the taillight. But the thing that Hank Brennan failed to highlight when he mentioned this was that there's also the presence of 2 other unidentified DNA profiles in that same sample. And furthermore, on John O'Keefe's clothes, on his jeans, there are apparent blood stains, which were also sampled for DNA. And I believe it's more than one of those stains includes a mixture of not only John O'Keefe's DNA, but also 2 other unidentified DNA profiles. So um, I find that incredibly troubling, why the prosecution and investigators have seemingly made no effort to investigate whose DNA that is. I mean, that seems like a huge problem.
Yeah, well, I'm assuming if they're
Right.
truly unidentified, then they're stuck with what they're stuck with. But it's also important to point out there is no burden on the defense to do anything, to prove anything about anybody. I mean,
But
if they throw,
let me disabuse everybody here forensically about DNA under fingernails. That doesn't happen often. There's a lot of studies on this. We're all hearing about you have a fight to the death where I have long fingernails right here, and you're scratching somebody and you're getting under there, but it very rarely do you get the perps DNA under fingernails. I mean, there's been so many studies I can't even tell you. It's a misnomer because of all the great TV shows that everyone's got DNA under the fingernails. All right, it just doesn't happen. Okay, and then also you've got the snow. I mean, it depends where you sample on the shirt. It depends where you sample in the wound. It depends on the bench notes. Now, no one knows bench notes better than me. I can tell you this. Okay, there's a lot of issue, and I haven't seen them, but there'll be a lot of issues if the defense really goes into those, and I'm sure they will. This time out, they may have to do that, call people from the lab, and not just like, did you sample here, and they take a picture where they sampled, so there's you have to sample the right exact spot. Okay, and then of course, since there's snow on the ground, right, that can wash away. If this were the other way around, you'd hear the prosecution saying, and the snow washed away the DNA, and the weather, and the snow coming down, and that's why it's very fragile and it's subject to the elements and all. That's what you'd hear. And so it's a little bit of it really is disingenuous to go there.
And also, I think that where you typically, when you do see DNA present under the fingernails, it's typically in a homicide that's much more up close and personal, like a strangulation or a stabbing death. Got people getting into a fist fight, because usually that DNA gets under the fingernails, like in a strangulation, because you're trying to
Grabbing
do
that,
whatever you
right,
can, right,
right.
to exactly. And the other thing you have to keep in mind here is that if you're exploring the third party culprit theory, right? Well, the third party culprits, some of them are seasoned law enforcement, so if you're going to explore that theory, then you have to consider that fact and how that would factor into, you know their potential actions. And these are things, for instance, that, like, if there's a cover up and what have you, that presumably seasoned law enforcement, seasoned homicide detectives would be aware of those concerns or of those things, and how to take care of it, or how to get rid of that evidence, I guess. And so those are all, I guess, pertinent considerations.
Kevin Honke, let me see, Breenan's spell checker. By the way, Olivia is an awesome contributor. Love this woman.
Oh, thank you.
Viewpoint about you.
Let's see. I'm going to squeeze in another question here. This is right up your Sally port. That camera system,
Sally Port.
that
Oh
camera
my
system
gosh.
meets federal and state specifications as is included in most RFPs. I am still surprised the defense hasn't subpoenaed Tyco for the service records. What do you know about the cameras that we know strangely did things invertedly, malfunctioned, and was replaced?
Yeah, I mean, if I were the defense, I'd certainly be asking more questions, like, especially after the Commonwealth announced that apparently the Canton Police Department replaced that Sally Port camera. I think they said it was the inverted camera, which I think you guys may have talked about this on your show. I think Michael may have said this, because I was all, you were like, of all the cameras that you would prioritize replacing, wouldn't it be the one that is basically blackened, like where you can't see anything? Because the inverted one, it's like, okay, well, it's inverted, but you can still more clearly see what's going on. So I would be asking, I guess, more questions about when exactly was that camera or those cameras replaced. And yeah, I guess trying to get more information about that. Honestly, I would be trying to get information from prior cases, um, stuff that I would already have been in the court record, so it's not something that could be altered or manipulated now. Where this Canton Police Department Sally Port footage was used in evidence.
Well, that's a good
Let's
point,
see
because
how
I
it
have to
looked.
believe these cameras are not intended to capture evidence unless it's evidence of a crime against the police department, like somebody broke in and stole something. Or, I don't see that they would use these cameras in anticipation of what's actually happening now to police their own police, so to speak.
Right, right.
So maybe nobody's given a thought to these cameras, that they're there to catch a burglar, they're there to catch somebody who vandalizes the cop house, certainly not
You
to catch the cops doing bad things.
Well, it's usually, I think that usually it's for like security purposes, of related to custody matters, like bringing a suspect or a perp into custody, right? Because the Sally Port is inherently designed to provide security, provide a safe way to bring a perpetrator or a suspect into custody. And in fact, there was actually a recent issue at another police department. I'm forgetting what state it was in. I don't think it was Massachusetts, but where the officer is taking the perp out of the back seat of the cruiser when they're in the Sally Port, and the perp then attacks the officer. And what stood out to me most about that footage was how clear it was. I mean, it was so clear. It was, it was, everything was easy to see. There was audio. And, I know with all the wiretapping stuff that maybe, maybe they don't have audio on these cameras, but that's another thing that I wonder with
Yeah.
the Sallyport footage is there normally audio on the Canton PD Sallyport footage too? Because there's no audio on the videos that they've shown us at trial, which is also interesting.
I have to believe. What do you think, Linda? That
I
if
don't
there's
think there was.
audio,
Yeah.
if there's audio,
Yeah.
we'd be getting it.
We'd be getting it. I really think. So before we let you go, we have a final question. Thank you, El Dante, California, $5. Thank you for the donation. The thought it was going to be a slam dunk, never assuming she would fight. The incestuous corruption became forefront, no longer about Karen, nor about John O'Keefe. And we say that, by the way, on this show all the time. We say just because we discuss whether or not the prosecution has met their burden does not mean we don't want to find out what happened to Officer John O'Keefe. He was a person. He had a family. He tragically died. Was it an accident? Was it a homicide? What was it? Something else? Was it just what was it? I mean, we just don't know. So when we talk about this, we're not in any way denigrating his memory. So, what are your thoughts, Olivia, before we let you go?
Well, I mean, this has always been about John O'Keefe, and I think that I was thinking about this recently with just the whole what kind of just seems like just the theatrics and dramatics in court with the past 5 weeks and the grave concerns and the repeated discussions about the grave concerns and all of this, particularly after it had been revealed that there was the evidence of the prosecution basically withholding, hiding evidence. And it's like, aren't we trying to get to the truth here? Aren't we trying to figure out what happened to John O'Keefe and really, get justice, get to the truth and get answers? And I just think that with like all the theatrics and the dramatics, it was making me think, it's like between the judge and the prosecution, it's like John O'Keefe is completely getting lost in all of this. The prosecutor shouldn't be strategizing how to how to attack the defense and the defense. It shouldn't be about strategy from the prosecutor's perspective. It should be about justice and the truth. And so yeah, I mean, I agree with the commenter that John O'Keefe, I mean, he I think he is why a lot of people are here, but of course he seems to get lost often in the conversation. And yeah, I also agree that they thought she was going to just submit and not fight back and take a plea deal. And I don't think they ever expected for any of this to happen. And a lot of people think that, that right after she was arrested that same day, all the local and mainstream news media were reporting, based on their reports from the DA's office and investigators, that they had ring footage of the incident of Karen striking John.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Which obviously we know now is not true. But if you're the public, you're a person who's from Norfolk County watching the news, and you hear this, and then you hear, oh well, they've got ring camera footage, it's open and shut, right? Like, you're not going to question the case or the investigation. But of course we know that's not true now. So I agree with that commenter.
Yeah.
Yep. Well, they got their hands full now. They may have thought there was nothing happening and no fight coming, but
yeah.
They
Joanna.
got that wrong.
Yeah. Joanna says, thank you again, Joanna. You're such a supporter of the channel. I don't think we'll ever know the truth.
Yeah, and that's really sad.
That happens. Very sad happens.
That is really sad.
So
hey, Olivia, Thank you so much.
Yeah.
It's a pleasure. And next time I have some, these technical questions, I'm going to skip right past Linda Kenny Bodden and go right to you with your graphics and your calculations. And we really appreciate you sharing some of your expertise with us on this case.
Yeah, and taking your time to come on the show. We really appreciate it.
Well,
Thank
thank
you
you so
so
much
much.
for having me.
Of
And
course.
I just wanted to say to you guys, I really appreciate all that you're doing, between both of you coming to town, and I was watching Michael's interviews with various locals. Um, it's refreshing to see people with your knowledge and your experience who are really kind of trying to get a sense of where the community stands and all perspectives on this case. And I'm a huge fan. So
Oh,
thank you
great.
so
We
much for
appreciate
having
that.
me on. And I love the show.
Well,
Thank you
thank
very much.
you. We'll be in
Thank you.
touch. I know I'm going to have questions for you. Thank you, Olivia.
Thank you,
Sounds
Olivia.
good. Have a great evening.
You too.
Okay, you too.
Bye-bye. So that's fun. Yeah.
So we have, I want to let you know that we have probably built up another 500 questions on the 800 we still haven't answered. So I think at one point we're going to have to do a show just answering all the questions we haven't answered and do it as a premiere because we're going to get other questions. And of course, our viewers, we thank them very much. We had over 1,000 people chatting at one point here and asking questions. And sorry we didn't get to all of them. I think we could do a whole
We made
day
a dent.
finishing.
We made a dent.
We
but,
made a
yeah.
little bit of a dent. Made a little bit of a dent. So Michael Bryant, tomorrow's a big day.
Yeah, tomorrow. So again, we'll be back on at, or I'll be back on at 10:30. Just do a little pre, setup, and then 11 o'clock ish. The hearing is to take place, and then I'm assuming they'll break for 1 o'clock lunch, and we may both be here for that, but you'll be back by then for sure.
Right, I'll be back by 1. Right,
and then we'll just carry on through the day, see what happens. I guarantee it's going to be fireworks, just because it always is, and we know there's so many questions that have yet to be answered that really can dramatically shift how this case plays out. So.
Yep. Although we'll see whether she gives people 2 minutes. It's like, I can name.
We never talked about that.
We
didn't talk about how ridiculous that was. How all of a sudden it's speed dating in Judge Bev's court. It was just bizarre. And you see Attorney Alessi, just like speeding things up, like he's in his mind, he's calculated what I can get in 2 minutes. It's not the way it's supposed to be. I mean, come on.
Yeah, it's not supposed to be that way, especially since we spend so much time on this. So yeah, do it. Oh yeah, that was a great moment, wasn't it? Alan Jackson.
Do it. And when Brennan said that, I went, "You're not going to be glad you said that." I mean. You have no idea what you've just given the defense.
It's called rebuttal. Do it. Do it.
And again, the judge almost is challenging. Well, do you think he's going to call some? Well, yeah.
Yeah.
Why would I? She made it sound like he was going to object to that.
Yeah, well, she's making it sound like she may not even let the agent who's an expert on showing how bad this investigation is end. We could that if that happens tomorrow, that could be a tragedy. I mean, that would be
huge.
Ridiculous. That would be ridiculous.
Of course, but it could happen
if it happens. But we'll get the benefit of the doubt right now.
One more thought on that. When she said to Alan Jackson that, well, you wouldn't object if they wanted to bring in, she said Canton Police, but Massachusetts State Police, Canton Police. You wanted to bring them in to talk about how great the investigation was. I got 2 words, do it. I mean, why would she think that would be a problem for the defense? Is she that checked out?
No, I mean, that's you be living for that.
Of
course. Living for it. Just let me in my dreams. Let me.
Oh my gosh.
Oh my goodness gracious.
Yeah. So anyway, so the saga continues tomorrow. Unless you got something else for me, I think we'll get out of here.
No. And just again, thank you all for joining us tonight. And we'll be back tomorrow pretty much all day, and Wednesday and Thursday and Friday.
And next week
keep asking those questions, because we will eventually get to all of them. And I know that's why you came, and we're trying our best. Okay?
Yeah, we appreciate it. It's everybody's so into this case and have so many logical questions. I'm learning as much as anything. So
yeah,
thank you so much. I'm Michael Bryant. Hey, try to do the right thing. We'll see you next time.
And I'm Linda Kenny Bodden. And before we go, I'm going to ask you all just to take a second and hit that like button. Like if you can all do it now, hit that like button. Okay. Because that gets us into the YouTube algorithm. And then they push out their videos to other people so you can see them and everyone can see them and they can come back to Just to Serve TV. So again, hit that like button. Doesn't cost you anything. The subscribe button doesn't cost you anything. The share button on we have I think 490 videos out there on any of them, especially this, doesn't cost you anything. And also hit the notify all, and you have to do all or else it's going to revert, and you'll get notified when we go live on a new show. So again, hit the like button and we will see you tomorrow.